I was 65 years old when I screamed in my bedroom. Not the polite, startled kind of scream you let out when a spider drops from the ceiling. Not the horror movie kind either. This one came from somewhere deeper. Somewhere I hadn't visited in years. If you're assuming it was because of a man, hold that thought. It wasn't that simple. My name is Diane Harper. I've lived in the same Portland house since 1979. Back when this neighborhood had maple trees instead of microbreweries and kids played tag instead of staring at phones. My husband Tom and I bought this house when we were 23. Fresh out of college. Broke. Optimistic. He used to joke that the walls were thin enough to hear our future children breathing. He wasn't wrong. We raised 2 kids here. Megan and Kyle. They grew up, moved out, built lives that orbit their phones more than they orbit me. That's not bitterness, just truth. Tom died 8 years ago on a Tuesday morning while I was flipping blueberry pancakes. Heart attack. Quick. Brutal. Unapologetic. 43 years of marriage ended before the coffee finished brewing. People tell you time heals. What they don't tell you is that time also rearranges you. Smooths some edges. Sharpens others. Leaves hollow spaces you learn to decorate so they don't echo too loudly. I decorated mine with routine. 6:30 a.m. coffee. Local newspaper. Water the hydrangeas. Stretch my knees because arthritis doesn't care about dignity. Lunch with Carol once a week. Church twice a month. Home renovation shows at night where 30-year-olds tear down perfectly good kitchens because the backsplash isn't vibing. I still wear lipstick every day. Rum raisin. Tom's favorite shade on me. He used to say it made me look dangerous. At 65, no one has called me dangerous in a long time. My daughter Megan hates my bedroom furniture. "Mom, that wardrobe belongs in a museum," she said last Christmas. It was solid oak. Heavy. Built to outlive us. Tom assembled it himself the year Kyle was born. The bottom drawer stuck every winter. One hinge squeaked. But I liked it. It had history in its wood grain. Still, after months of Megan sending me links and modern inspiration boards, I finally gave in. Last week, I ordered a new wardrobe. Leak. Sliding mirror doors. Soft close tracks. Delivery. Wednesday at 10 a.m. Tuesday night, I stood in my bedroom longer than usual. The old wardrobe loomed against the wall like a stubborn relative refusing to move. I opened it slowly. Inside hung dresses I hadn't worn in years. Silk blouses. A red cocktail dress from a charity gala in 2004. At the back, tucked carefully in a fabric bag, was the navy dress I wore to Tom's funeral. I closed the door gently. "Time," I whispered to the empty room. I sprayed perfume behind my ears before bed. White diamonds. Habit I never broke. Then I caught my reflection in the mirror. Silver hair I finally stopped dyeing last year. Lines around my mouth. Skin softer than it used to be. But my eyes. Still sharp. Still awake. I tilted my head slightly. "Not dead yet," I muttered. And that's when I laughed. Really laughed. 'Cause the thought startled me. Somewhere along the way, I had confused quiet with finished. I went to bed restless. By 9:45 Wednesday morning, the house looked staged for a magazine shoot. Fresh flowers on the kitchen table. Counters wiped twice. Vacuum lines visible in the carpet. I changed outfits 3 times before settling on dark jeans, the structured pair, not the elastic waist, and a soft teal sweater Megan once said made my eyes brighter. I told myself I was dressing presentably for the delivery team. Nothing more. At exactly 10:02 a.m., the doorbell rang. I checked the peephole. And that's when my stomach did something it hadn't done in years. The man standing on my porch wasn't what I expected. Not a bored college kid scrolling his phone. Not a middle-aged guy with a cigarette hanging from his lip. He was tall. Broad shoulders under a navy work shirt with his name stitched over the pocket. Dark hair trimmed short. Strong jaw. Calm expression. He shifted the large flat box slightly and it scraped against the doorframe. The sudden noise startled me so sharply that I let out a yelp, loud and unfiltered. He jumped back. Ma'am, you okay? I opened the door quickly, embarrassed. I'm so sorry, I said. You just startled me. His mouth curved into a grin. Deep dimples. It's a dangerous job, he said lightly. Furniture delivery. Real high-risk stuff. His voice was low. Warm. Izzy. I'm Luke, he added. Here for the wardrobe install. Course he was. I stepped aside. Diane, I said. Come in. He wiped his boots carefully on the mat without being asked. That small detail registered more than it should have. Inside he glanced around. Nice place, he said. You don't see hardwood like this anymore. My husband refinished them himself, I replied automatically. The word husband felt both present and past at the same time. Luke nodded respectfully. Where do you want it? Upstairs. As I led him up, I became aware of every creak in the staircase. Every shift of fabric against my skin. Ridiculous. He was here to assemble furniture. Nothing else. Inside my bedroom. He set down his toolbox and studied the old oak wardrobe. Solid piece, he said, running a hand along its surface. You sure you want to replace it? I hesitated. For just a second. Yes, I said finally. I think it's time. He nodded once, like he understood that answer meant more than furniture. I'll need to empty it before I take it apart, he said. I'll handle that. As I began removing clothes, I could feel his presence in the room. Not invasive. Just there. Live. He unpacked the new panels with focused efficiency. At one point he asked, Mind if I crack a window? Little stuffy in here. Go ahead. October air drifted in, cool and sharp. Sunlight cut across the room, catching dust motes mid-air. Coffee, he offered. If you've got some, I won't say no. Downstairs, I leaned against the counter for a moment before pouring 2 mugs. Why was I nervous? I had hired dozens of service workers over the years. Plumbers, electricians, painters. None of them made my pulse misbehave. When I handed him the mug, our fingers brushed. Just barely. But my skin registered it like static electricity. Thanks, he said. Then he paused slightly. That perfume smells familiar. Froze. Does it? My mom wears the same one, he said with a small smile. Kind of comforting. Relief and something unexpected washed over me. She has good taste, I replied. Yeah, he said quietly. She does. We worked in companionable silence for a while. Then he asked me to hold one of the sliding panels steady. He stepped close. Close enough that I could see faint flecks of gold in his brown eyes. Right there, he murmured, adjusting my grip. His hand covered mine for a brief second. The contact was innocent, practical, necessary. And yet my body reacted like it remembered something long dormant. When the panel clicked into place, I blurted out nervously. That went in fast. Silence. He looked at me. Really looked. A flicker of recognition passed through his expression. Perfect fit, he said quietly. The air shifted. Not dramatically, but unmistakably. I stepped back first. I'll let you finish up, I said, suddenly aware of my heartbeat. He didn't push. Didn't smirk. He just nodded and returned to work. But something had changed. And for the first time in 8 years, my bedroom didn't feel like a museum. Felt like a room again. Live. I told myself it was nothing. Flicker. Moment. A harmless spark caused by proximity and nostalgia and the strange intimacy of letting a stranger into your bedroom. That's all. By the time Luke finished assembling the wardrobe, I had mostly convinced myself of that. He tightened the final screw, wiped his hands on a cloth, and slid the mirrored door back and forth once more. Smooth, he said. I watched his reflection instead of him directly. Young. Solid. Alive in a way that felt unfairly effortless. Looks good, I replied. He packed up his tools slowly. Not dragging it out but not rushing either. You'll get an email survey about the service, he said casually. If I forgot anything, you can mention it there. I don't think you forgot anything. Our eyes met in the mirror. Something unspoken hovered there. He cleared his throat first. Well, I'll let you get back to your day. Back to what exactly? Silence and reheated soup. I walked him downstairs. Each step felt heavier than it should have. At the front door he hesitated. Hey, he said. Yes. If the tracks shift or anything feels off, call the store. They'll send me back out. Send me back. He nodded. Okay. He opened the door, stepped onto the porch, then turned back slightly. It was nice meeting you, Diane. Not ma'am. Not Mrs. Harper. Then. You too, Luke. The door closed. And the house exhaled. The quiet rushed back in like it had been waiting. I stood there for a long moment before locking the door. Then I went upstairs. The new wardrobe gleamed under the afternoon light. Clean. Modern. Reflective. I slid one of the doors open and began transferring my clothes from the bed into their new space. As I hung each dress, I found myself replaying small moments. The way he wiped his boots. The way he noticed my perfume. The way his hand covered mine, steady, careful. I stopped mid-motion. This is ridiculous, I muttered. He was 32. Maybe 33. I was 65. Old enough to be. I didn't finish that sentence. Instead, I caught my reflection again. My cheeks were still faintly flushed. My eyes brighter than usual. Not because of him. Because of what he stirred. That difference mattered. That night, I didn't turn on the television. I made myself a simple dinner, grilled chicken and steamed vegetables, and ate at the kitchen table instead of in front of the couch. The house felt different. Not fuller. Just aware. Around 8:30 p.m. my phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen. Unknown number. My heart skipped once before I could stop it. I let it ring twice. 3 times. Then answered. Hello. Hey. His voice. Whoa. Familiar already. I closed my eyes briefly. You're not supposed to have my number, I said, aiming for stern. It was on the work order, he replied. Strictly professional abuse of power. Despite myself, I smiled. That sounds illegal. Probably. Was. You okay? He asked. The simplicity of the question caught me off guard. I'm fine, I said. Why? Just checking. You check on all your customers. No. The answer came too quickly to be rehearsed. Silence stretched between us. Not uncomfortable. Charged. You didn't have to call, I said finally. I know. Then why did you? A soft exhale on the other end. Because I kept thinking about that moment. My throat tightened slightly. What moment? You know which one. I did. That was nothing, I said carefully. Didn't feel like nothing. My pulse began to climb. It was a joke, I insisted. Was it? I leaned back in my chair. You're reading into it. Am I? There was no arrogance in his tone. No smugness. Just curiosity. You're young, I said. And I'm not. That's not what I see. I almost laughed. What exactly do you see? I see someone who hasn't been looked at in a long time. The words landed harder than I expected. That's presumptuous. Maybe. But not wrong. I swallowed. You don't know anything about my life. I know you were married, he said gently. You said my husband in present tense. The observation startled me. I've had 8 years to practice, I said quietly. I'm sorry, he replied, and the sincerity in his voice erased any hint of manipulation. We sat in silence again. You shouldn't be calling me, I said finally. Do you want me to hang up? The question was simple, honest, and dangerously direct. I opened my mouth to say yes. What came out was, no. Another pause. Okay, he said softly. The way he said it, like it mattered, sent warmth down my spine. I'm not trying to make things complicated, he added. They already are. Only if we let them be. You make it sound easy. It's not easy, he said. I just don't scare as fast as most people. I almost smiled at that. You should, I said. This is the part where common sense kicks in. And what does common sense say? That this doesn't make sense. Not everything that doesn't make sense is wrong. I closed my eyes again. When was the last time someone looked at you like that? He asked quietly. The question sliced through me. I don't think that's your business. Maybe not. But you didn't answer. I could have lied. I could have deflected. Instead I whispered. 8 years. The admission hung between us. Yeah, he said softly. That's what I thought. My chest felt tight. I'm not fragile, I said. I know. I don't need saving. I'm not offering. Then what are you offering? Another breath. Dinner. Blink. Dinner. Public place. Normal conversation. No expectations. You think that makes this normal? No, he said. I think it makes it honest. My heart was beating hard enough now that I was sure he could hear it through the phone. This is inappropriate, I said weakly. Probably. You're not even denying it. I'm not good at pretending. That line settled into me in a way that felt steady rather than reckless. You'll regret this, I warned. Will you? The question turned back on me. I hesitated. I don't know. Then let's find out. Silence again. Longer this time. You don't even know how old I am, I said finally. 65. My breath caught. How do you know that? It was on the invoice paperwork, he admitted. Birth date for warranty registration. You memorized it. Yeah. The honesty of that startled me more than if he'd tried to dodge. That should bother me, I said. Does it? Thought about it. No. There it was. Truth. When? I asked quietly. Friday, he said immediately. 7 o'clock. I'll pick you up. You assume I'm saying yes. You didn't say no. He wasn't wrong. I stared at the dark window over my sink, seeing only my faint reflection. Okay, I said. The word felt heavier than it should have. Okay, he repeated. Yes. He exhaled slowly. I'll text you the details. Luke. Yeah. This is not a game. I know. And if I change my mind, I won't argue. That answer mattered more than anything else he'd said. Good night, I said softly. Good night, Diane. This time, neither of us rushed to hang up. When the line finally went dead, I stayed seated for several minutes. My heart slowly returned to a normal rhythm. I stood and walked upstairs. The bedroom looked different now. Less like a shrine. More like a space waiting for something. I walked to the wardrobe and opened the mirrored door. My reflection stared back at me. Gray hair. Strong jawline. Eyes that hadn't felt this awake in years. You're being foolish, I whispered. But my reflection didn't look afraid. It looked alive. And for the first time since Tom died, I realized something quietly terrifying. I wasn't done. I didn't sleep much after agreeing to dinner. Not because I felt reckless. 'Cause I felt aware. There's a difference. Reckless feels like falling. Aware feels like standing at the edge and knowing exactly how far down it is. Thursday dragged. Every normal part of my routine felt slightly tilted. At the grocery store, I caught myself staring at my reflection in the freezer doors. At home, I tried on 3 different blouses, just to see. I hadn't worried about what to wear for a man in nearly a decade. That realization alone unsettled me. By late afternoon, my daughter Megan called. Hey Mom, what are you up to? The casual question made me feel oddly guilty. Oh, nothing exciting, I said. Just reorganizing my closet. Finally, she laughed. How's the new wardrobe? Fine. Smooth. That's good. Did the installer do a decent job? My grip tightened slightly on the phone. Yes, I said evenly. Very professional. That's rare these days, she replied. Half the time they're on their phones. I swallowed. He wasn't. Well, good. Anyway, we're coming by Sunday with the kids. Sunday. 2 days after dinner. Sounds good, I replied. When we hung up, I stared at my phone for a long time. This wasn't just a dinner. It was a ripple. And ripples spread. Friday arrived faster than I wanted it to. By 4 o'clock, my bed was covered in rejected outfits. Too matronly. Too young. Too try-hard. Too safe. I stood in front of the mirror wearing a simple black wrap dress I'd bought years ago for a charity fundraiser. It fit differently now. My body softer in places, firmer in others. I turned slightly, studying the curve of my waist. "Stop it," I muttered. I wasn't 25. But I wasn't invisible either. I styled my silver hair loosely instead of pinning it back. Subtle makeup. Nothing dramatic. When I picked up my lipstick, I hesitated. Rum raisin. Tom's favorite. For a moment, guilt tried to rise. Then I applied it anyway. At exactly 6:58 p.m., headlights flashed across my living room wall. Right on time. My heart began its now familiar rhythm. Not panic, not fear, anticipation. I opened the door before he could knock. Luke stood there in dark jeans and a fitted charcoal blazer over a white shirt. Clean. Intentional. Confident without trying too hard. His eyes moved over me slowly. Not in a crude way. In a stunned way. "Wow," he said quietly. "Don't," I warned, though my cheeks warmed. "I'm serious. You look," he paused, searching. "Unfair." That made me laugh despite myself. "That's dramatic." "Accurate," he replied. He didn't reach for me immediately. He simply offered his arm. It was such an old-fashioned gesture that it disarmed me. Took it. The contact was light. Steady. The drive downtown was comfortable. Music low. Conversation easy. "So," he said, glancing at me briefly at a stoplight. "Nervous?" "Yes." "About me?" "About everything." He nodded slightly. "That's fair." The restaurant he chose was modern but not trendy. Warm lighting. Exposed brick. Quiet enough for conversation. As we walked in, I felt it. The glances. The subtle double takes. A few quick assumptions flickering across strangers' faces. Father and daughter. Whoa. Mentor. Whoa. Something else. Luke didn't react. He placed his hand lightly at the small of my back as we were seated. Not possessive. Grounding. Once menus were in our hands, I exhaled slowly. "You okay?" he asked. "People are staring." "Let them." Easy for him to say. He reached across the table, fingers brushing mine briefly. "I'm not embarrassed," he said quietly. "Maybe you should be." "Why?" "Because this isn't what people expect. I don't live for people's expectations." The certainty in his voice unsettled and steadied me at the same time. Over dinner we talked. Not small talk. Real talk. He told me about growing up with a single mother who worked 2 jobs. About learning early how to fix things because hiring someone wasn't an option. I told him about Tom. About 43 years of shared habits and inside jokes. About the silence that followed his death. He didn't look uncomfortable. He didn't compete. He listened. "Do you still talk to him?" he asked gently at one point. "In my head," I admitted. "That's not weird." I didn't say it was. He smiled faintly. "I don't want to replace him," he said carefully. "You couldn't," I replied automatically. "I know." There was no ego in his response. Just acceptance. Halfway through dinner, I noticed a woman at a nearby table watching us openly. Judging. Curious. I felt my shoulders tighten. Luke noticed. "Hey," he murmured. "What?" "Look at me." I did. "Stay here," he said softly. "With me." The simplicity of that request cut through the noise. He nodded. After dinner, we stepped outside into cool night air. The city lights reflected off wet pavement, casting everything in soft gold. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he said quietly, "I'm glad you came." "So am I." That surprised me. He stepped closer. Close enough that I could feel his warmth without touching. "Can I kiss you?" he asked. The fact that he asked mattered. "Yes," I said. The kiss was slow. Measured. Not rushed. His hand settled at my waist, firm but gentle. My fingers found the lapel of his blazer, gripping lightly. The world narrowed to breath and warmth and the shock of being wanted again. When we pulled apart, I was slightly breathless. "Still okay," he murmured. "Yes." I didn't hesitate this time. He studied my face like he was memorizing it. "I don't want this to be just tonight," he said quietly. The words landed with weight. "This is complicated," I replied. "I know. My family. We're not planning your wedding," he said gently. "We're having dinner." I exhaled slowly. "Come over tomorrow," he added. My pulse jumped. "That's fast." "It's honest." I looked at him carefully. There was no smirk, no pressure, just invitation. "I'll think about it," I said. "That's all I'm asking." He walked me to my car. Before I got in, he brushed his knuckles lightly along my cheek. "You're not invisible," he said quietly. The words hit something deep inside me. Something I hadn't acknowledged. Then he stepped back. No dramatic goodbye. No insistence. Just space. I drove home in silence, my mind racing. When I pulled into my driveway, I didn't go inside immediately. I sat there in the dark, hands on the steering wheel. This wasn't about rebellion. It wasn't about youth. It was about choice. For 8 years I had chosen safety, predictability, emotional stillness. Tonight felt like motion. When I finally went inside, the house felt different. Not smaller. Not lonelier. Just awake. Upstairs, I stood in front of the mirrored wardrobe again. My lipstick slightly smudged. My eyes bright. My cheeks flushed. "You're playing with fire," I whispered. But my reflection didn't look afraid. It looked ready. And that realization both thrilled and terrified me. My phone buzzed. Text from Luke. "Home safe." I smiled despite myself. 3 dots appeared instantly. Tomorrow. I stared at the screen for a long moment. Then typed. "One step at a time." His reply came seconds later. "Can do that." I set my phone down. Tomorrow wasn't decided yet. But something inside me already knew. I was going to say yes. I said yes the next morning before I could talk myself out of it. That was the honest version. The slightly more dignified version is that I weighed my options carefully, considered long-term consequences, reflected on my emotional readiness, and then made a balanced decision. But the truth. I woke up thinking about the way he had said "you're not invisible." And I didn't want to go back to feeling that way. My phone buzzed at 8:07 a.m. Coffee's on. No pressure. I stared at the message for a long time. No pressure. He kept saying that. And somehow that made it harder to refuse. I typed back before fear could get organized. "Send me the address." His apartment building was newer than anything in my neighborhood. Clean lines. Steel railings. Floor-to-ceiling windows that reflected gray Portland sky. I almost turned around twice on the drive there. This is irresponsible. This is reckless. This is exactly how people ruin stable lives. But another voice answered quietly. "You don't have a stable life. You have a quiet one. There's a difference." Park. Sat there for a full minute. Then stepped out. He opened the door before I knocked, like he'd been watching for me. Gray t-shirt. Barefoot. Slightly messy hair. No blazer. No public polish. Just him. "You came," he said, and there was genuine surprise in his voice. "I did." He stepped aside. His apartment smelled like coffee and something warm. Cinnamon, maybe. Music played softly from a speaker on the counter. Old soul. Not trendy. Not what I expected. "I make decent pancakes," he said. "You can judge me." "Careful," I replied. "I have strong pancake opinions." He smiled at that. The space was simple. Minimal furniture. Clean but lived in. No clutter. No chaos. No ghost. That hit me unexpectedly. There were no framed wedding photos on nightstands. No shared history embedded in the walls. This was present tense. He handed me a mug. "Still nervous?" he asked. "Yes." "Good." I raised an eyebrow. Means you care. We stood in the kitchen, close but not touching. The tension wasn't loud. It was steady, warm. A hum under the surface. Why me? I asked again because I couldn't seem to stop asking. He didn't sigh this time. You don't perform, he said simply. I don't know what that means. You don't try to impress me. You don't flirt for effect. You don't angle for validation. I folded my arms lightly. Maybe I'm just out of practice. He shook his head. No. You're just solid. That word settled into me in a way I didn't expect. Solid. Not old. Not fragile. Not nostalgic. Solid. He flipped a pancake smoothly. You're grounded, he added. You know who you are. I looked away briefly. For 8 years I've just been surviving, I said quietly. That's different. He turned off the stove. Silence filled the space between us. Thicker now. Intentional. You don't have to decide everything today, he said softly. I know. But you are deciding something. I met his eyes. Yes. He stepped closer. Slow enough that I could have moved away. I didn't. His hand lifted, hesitated briefly, then rested lightly at my waist. Still okay, he murmured. Yes. The kiss was different from the one outside the restaurant. Not cautious. Not exploratory. Certain. His mouth moved against mine slowly, deliberately, like he was giving me space inside it. My hands came up without conscious permission, fingers curling into the fabric of his shirt. Warm. Solid. Real. The kiss deepened, not rushed, just steady. My body responded before my thoughts could interfere. I hadn't been touched like this in 8 years. Not by someone new. Not by someone discovering me. He pulled back slightly, eyes searching mine. Talk to me, he said softly. I'm okay. You sure? Yes. My voice wasn't shaking. That surprised me. He kissed me again, slower this time. His hand sliding from my waist to the small of my back. Every movement asked without words. And I answered without retreating. He guided me down the hallway gently, not pulling, just leading. The bedroom was simple. Gray sheets. Sunlight filtering through half-closed blinds. No history in the walls. No expectations. Just now. He paused before the bed. Last chance, he whispered. I looked at him carefully. Not at his youth. Not at the age gap. At him. At the steadiness in his expression. I'm not fragile, I said. I know, he replied. And then we crossed the line. It wasn't frantic. It wasn't wild. It was slow. Intentional. Hands learning new skin. Breath adjusting to unfamiliar rhythm. There was a moment, brief but sharp, where guilt tried to surface. But it wasn't about Tom. It was about change. About stepping into a version of myself I hadn't allowed in years. Luke sensed the hesitation. You okay? He asked quietly, forehead resting against mine. Yes, I said, and this time it came from somewhere deeper. He moved with patience, not urgency. Every touch felt deliberate. Not claiming. Discovering. When I finally let go, really let go, it wasn't just physical. It was release. Of grief. Of stillness. Of the belief that my body had an expiration date. Afterward we lay side by side in silence. My breathing gradually slowed. Sunlight warmed my shoulder. He traced slow circles on my arm. No regrets, he asked gently. I thought about it honestly. No. The answer felt steady. Not reckless. Not defensive. Just true. He nodded. Good. I rolled slightly onto my side, studying his face in the quiet light. This changes things, I said. Yeah. My daughter is coming over tomorrow. He smiled faintly. That's soon. It is. You don't have to tell her. I don't want to hide. The word surprised even me. He looked at me carefully. You don't want to feel like someone's secret. No. I wouldn't do that to you. The certainty in his voice wasn't dramatic. It was grounded. That mattered. What are you looking for? Asked him. He didn't hesitate. You. That's not an answer. It is, he said quietly. I'm not looking for a weekend. I'm not bored. I'm not rebelling. Then what are you doing? Choosing. The word settled into me heavily. You understand this won't be easy, I said. I'm not afraid of complicated. I am, I admitted. He studied me for a moment. Then we move at your pace. No argument. No ego. Just acceptance. That steadiness did more for me than passion ever could. I dressed slowly. He didn't rush me. Didn't crowd me. At the door, he brushed his fingers lightly along my jaw. You okay? He asked again. Yes. And I meant it fully. When I drove home I expected panic. Instead I felt clear. The house greeted me with its usual quiet. But it didn't feel suffocating anymore. Upstairs, I stood in front of the mirrored wardrobe. Same gray hair. Same 65-year-old body. But my eyes. Different. Alive in a way they hadn't been in years. This wasn't about chasing youth. It wasn't about replacing the past. It was about refusing to disappear. My phone buzzed. Dinner tomorrow. He texted. I smiled faintly. One day at a time, I replied. 3 dots appeared. Can do that. I set the phone down and looked around my bedroom. For the first time in a long time, it didn't feel like a shrine. Felt like a room. And I felt like a woman living in it. Not just remembering. Sunday came with noise. Not the quiet hum I had grown used to, but real noise. Car doors slamming. Children laughing. Megan's voice carrying up the driveway before she even knocked. I stood in the kitchen holding a dish towel, suddenly hyper-aware of everything. The new wardrobe upstairs. The faint bruise on my collarbone I'd carefully covered with concealer. The fact that I hadn't told her. Not yet. The door burst open before I reached it. Mom! Megan called out, juggling a casserole dish while her 2 kids ran straight for the living room. Shoes off. Called automatically. Kyle followed behind her, holding the baby seat like a trophy. Smells like coffee, he said. Good sign. Normal. Everything felt aggressively normal. I kissed Megan's cheek. She paused for half a second. You look different, she said. There it was. Different how? I asked lightly. I don't know. She squinted slightly. Rested. I laughed. Too quickly. Maybe I finally slept. She didn't push. But she noticed. Megan had always noticed. The house filled quickly. Toys scattered across the rug, cartoons humming from the TV, the kitchen warm with oven heat. I moved through it automatically. Refilling drinks. Cutting fruit. Smiling when expected. But underneath it all, there was a steady awareness pulsing quietly in my chest. Luke. Not physically here. But present. Because I had crossed something this weekend. And now I was standing in 2 worlds at once. Mom! Megan's voice pulled me from my thoughts. She stood in the doorway to the hallway. Can I see the new wardrobe? Of course she wanted to see it. She had been campaigning for months. Sure, I said, wiping my hands on the towel. We walked upstairs together. Felt 16. Which was absurd. She stepped into my bedroom and looked around. The space felt different to me now. But I couldn't tell if that difference was visible or just internal. She walked to the wardrobe and slid the mirrored door open. Finally, she said approvingly. It looks good. Much cleaner. She studied my reflection in the mirror instead of the furniture. You okay? She asked casually. Yes. That was fast. What was? The installation. Usually these companies take forever. Oh. My pulse ticked up slightly. It was straightforward. She kept watching me. You sure you're okay? I'm fine, Megan. She hesitated. Then gently. You're glowing. I almost laughed. Don't be ridiculous. I'm serious. Her eyes softened. When's the last time you did something for yourself? The question caught me off guard. I bought this wardrobe, I said dryly. That's not what I meant. Silence stretched between us. I could tell she sensed something. Not specifics, but a shift. Mom, she said quietly. It's okay if you're moving forward. Forward. Such a simple word. It's not that simple, I replied. It doesn't have to be complicated either. Easy for her to say. She had a husband downstairs. Children. Noise. Motion. I had spent 8 years becoming comfortable with stillness. I'm not replacing Dad, I said firmly. I know that, she replied immediately. Nobody thinks that. Her certainty surprised me. You're allowed to be happy, she added. The words settled into me slowly. Loud. I hadn't realized I was waiting for permission. She hugged me suddenly. You don't have to stay frozen, Mom. Frozen. That word lingered long after she let go. After they left that evening, the house felt quiet again. But not hollow. Different. I walked upstairs and sat on the edge of my bed. Frozen. Was that what I'd been? Not grieving anymore. Not broken. Just paused. My phone buzzed. How was today, Luke? I exhaled slowly before responding. Busy. Loud. Normal. A moment later. Good normal. Thought about it. 3 dots. Can I see you tomorrow? There was eagerness there. Not pressure. Just want. I stared at the message for a long time. This was where reality began. Not secret kisses. Not private mornings. But repetition. Continuity. Dinner at my place. I typed back before fear could interfere. You sure? This felt important. If this was going to exist, it couldn't live only in his space. It had to step into mine. Monday evening arrived quieter than Sunday. The house felt intimate. Intentional. I cooked something simple but thoughtful. Lemon herb chicken, roasted vegetables, a small salad. Not trying to impress. Just trying to be real. When the doorbell rang, my pulse still jumped. He stood there in dark jeans and a sweater, hands in his pockets. You sure? He asked again softly. Yes. He stepped inside slowly. This time the energy was different. He wasn't here as a delivery man. He wasn't here in neutral space. He was here inside my life. His eyes moved across the framed photos on the wall. Tom holding Megan at 3 years old. Kyle's graduation. Family beach vacations. He studied them respectfully. That's him, he asked gently, nodding toward a framed photo on the side table. Yes. Luke walked closer to it. He didn't touch it. Just looked. He looks steady, Luke said quietly. He was. Beat of silence. I'm not trying to compete with him, Luke added. I know. He turned back to me. The moment felt heavier here. More layered. He stepped closer. Still okay? He asked softly. Yes. But this time the word carried more weight. Because this wasn't just physical. This was integration. He brushed his fingers lightly against mine. Not pulling. Just present. You don't feel frozen, he said quietly. The word startled me. I wasn't, I replied automatically. He tilted his head slightly. Were you? I didn't answer. Instead, I stepped forward and kissed him first. It surprised both of us. But it felt right. Not desperate. Not impulsive. Just chosen. He responded immediately, hands settling at my waist. The kiss deepened slowly, but I pulled back first. Dinner, I said softly. He smiled. Yes, ma'am. Don't call me that. He laughed quietly. Over dinner, conversation flowed more easily. Less tension. More familiarity. But underneath it there was something new. Commitment forming quietly. People will notice, I said at one point. They probably already have. That doesn't scare you. No. It should. Does it scare you? I considered that honestly. Yes. He nodded. Then we take it slow. He reached across the table. Not to grab. Just to rest his hand near mine. You're not a secret, he said. And in that moment, I realized something quietly powerful. This wasn't about age. It wasn't about proving I was still desirable. It wasn't about replacing what I lost. It was about refusing to shrink. For 8 years I had lived gently. Carefully. Minimally. Now something inside me was stretching again. After dinner, when he stood to leave, the goodbye felt different. Not uncertain. Not temporary. Just the beginning of something that had crossed from spark to substance. At the door, he kissed my forehead softly. "I'm not going anywhere," he said. "I know," I replied. And this time I believed it. The first crack didn't come from a stranger. Came from someone I'd known for 15 years. Pearl. Thursday morning, she was sitting across from me at our usual cafe table, stirring her tea slowly while studying my face with unsettling precision. "You've been different lately," she said. There it was again. Different. "That's not a crime," I replied lightly. "No," she agreed. "But it is noticeable." I took a sip of coffee to buy time. "What exactly are we noticing?" Yes. She leaned back slightly. "You're distracted. You're smiling at your phone. You bought new bedroom furniture. And you wore eyeliner on a Tuesday." I blinked. "That's suspicious now." "For you." "Yes." Carol wasn't judgmental by nature, but she was observant and persistent. "Are you seeing someone?" she asked gently. Question hung between us. Loud. Real. Could have lied. It would have been easier. But something inside me refused to shrink. "Yes," I said. Her eyebrows lifted slightly. "Oh." Not anger. Not shock. Just recalibration. "That's wonderful," she said carefully. "Who is he?" I hesitated, because this was the part where tone changes. "He installed my wardrobe." Her teacup paused halfway to her lips. "Oh." That "oh" was different. "Carol," I warned softly. "How old is he?" I held her gaze. 32. There it was. Silence expanded between us. She set her cup down slowly. "That's quite a gap." "Yes." "Diane." I straightened slightly. "Don't." "I'm not judging," she said quickly. "I'm concerned." "About what?" "That he's young. That you've been alone a long time. That sometimes attention feels like affection." The words weren't cruel, but they cut. "You think I can't tell the difference?" I asked quietly. She sighed. "I think you deserve something real." "I have something real." "After how long?" I didn't answer that. 'Cause she wasn't wrong. Had been fast. Faster than anything I'd done in decades. "Is he serious?" she pressed gently. "Yes." "And you believe that?" "Yes." The firmness in my own voice surprised me. Carol studied me for a long moment. "You look alive," she admitted quietly. "I am." She nodded slowly. "I just don't want you hurt." "I don't either." We sat in silence for a few beats. Finally, she reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Then don't disappear into him," she said. The phrasing struck me. "I won't," I replied. And I meant it. That evening I told Luke about the conversation. We were sitting on my couch. His arm draped loosely behind me, not claiming, just resting. "She's not wrong," he said. "About what?" "That people are going to question it." "I don't mind questions." "What do you mind?" "Being dismissed." He nodded slightly. "That won't come from me." "Not from you," I said. "From everyone else." He turned to face me more directly. "Then we let them talk. You make it sound easy." "It's not easy," he said calmly. "It's just not more important than this." He brushed his thumb lightly along my wrist. That simple touch grounded me. "Do you ever doubt this?" Yes. He didn't hesitate. "I'd be lying if I said I didn't think about the age difference. And then I think about how I feel when I'm with you. That's not a long-term strategy." "No," he agreed. "But it's a starting point." I studied him carefully. "You understand I've built a whole life," I said quietly. "Family. History. People who see me a certain way. I'm not trying to erase that." "I know. But you're stepping into it." "Yes." There was no hesitation. That steadiness continued to surprise me. "Why aren't you scared?" "Yes." "I am," he admitted softly. That caught my attention. You are? Yeah. Of what? That one day you'll decide this was a phase. The vulnerability in his voice shifted something inside me. You think I'm experimenting? Yes. No, he said. But I know how much history you carry. I leaned back slightly, absorbing that. History doesn't mean I'm done, I said. I know. And I'm not trying to be 25 again. I don't want you to be. Silence settled between us again. Not tense. Reflective. You know what scares me. I admitted. What? That this feels good. He smiled faintly. That's usually a positive. For 8 years I didn't risk anything. Because you were healing. Or hiding. He tilted his head slightly. Which one do you think it was? I didn't answer. Because the truth was complicated. There had been grief. But there had also been safety. No vulnerability. No rejection. No judgment. Now all of that was back on the table. I don't want to lose myself, I said finally. You won't, he replied. Unless you choose to. His words weren't possessive. They were stabilizing. And I realized something quietly powerful. This relationship wasn't making me smaller. It was demanding I stand taller. The real confrontation came 2 days later. Not from Carol. From a stranger. Luke and I were walking through a small outdoor market downtown. Casual, relaxed, fingers loosely intertwined. An older man brushed past us and muttered just loud enough to hear. Disgusting. The word hit like a slap. Luke stiffened instantly. I felt it in his hand. He turned slightly, jaw tightening. Let it go, I said softly. He exhaled sharply. He doesn't get to. He doesn't matter. But the word lingered. Disgusting. I had prepared myself for curiosity. For whispers. But not that. Luke stopped walking. Look at me, he said quietly. I met his eyes. You're not embarrassing, he said firmly. You're not ridiculous. And you're sure as hell not disgusting. The intensity in his voice steadied me. I know, I replied. But it still stung. Because part of me had wondered. Even if I wouldn't admit it out loud. He brushed his thumb over my knuckles gently. Are you okay? He asked. Yes. And this time I wasn't pretending. Because the sting didn't outweigh the warmth. We kept walking. And I didn't let go of his hand. That night, alone in my bedroom, I stood in front of the mirrored wardrobe again. 6 weeks ago, this room felt like a mausoleum. Now it felt like a space in transition. I studied my reflection carefully. Was I foolish? Was I naive? Was I clinging to something that would eventually collapse under the weight of reality? Or was I finally living? My phone buzzed. You okay, Luke? I smiled slightly. A moment later. I'm not going anywhere. I stared at the message for a long time. Neither was I. But I also knew something now that I hadn't understood before. This wasn't going to stay simple. Not with friends watching. Not with strangers judging. Not with family still unaware of the full truth. The spark had become substance. And substance invites scrutiny. I turned off the bedroom light and slid into bed. For the first time in years, the quiet didn't feel like protection. Felt like preparation. The shift started subtly. It always does. Not with shouting. Not with dramatic ultimatums. Just a question asked in the wrong tone. Megan showed up unannounced on a Wednesday afternoon. I was in the kitchen slicing lemons when the doorbell rang. When I opened it, she was standing there alone. No kids, no casserole dish, no noise buffer. That's new, I said lightly. You without backup. She didn't smile. Can I come in? My stomach tightened slightly. Of course. She walked inside slowly, glancing around like she was taking inventory of something invisible. You busy? She asked. No. That was mostly true. Luke had left an hour earlier. His coffee mug was already in the dishwasher. I had learned to move carefully without meaning to. We sat at the kitchen table. Silence stretched. She folded her hands together. I saw you, she said. My heartbeat didn't spike, it dropped. Where? Asked evenly. At the Saturday market. With him. There it was. No confusion. No pretending. Just truth. And? Yes. And I didn't say anything then because I wanted to make sure I wasn't overreacting. Waited. He looks younger than Kyle. He is, I replied calmly. She inhaled slowly. How old? 32. The number landed between us like a dropped plate. She leaned back in her chair. Mom. Not angry. Not yet. Just stunned. I'm aware of the math, I said. That's not what I'm worried about. Then what are you worried about? That he's taking advantage of you. The words came fast. Protective. I'm not fragile, I replied immediately. I know that, she said quickly. But you've been alone a long time. And sometimes attention feels like love. Carol's words echoed. I know the difference, I said quietly. Do you? The doubt in her voice hurt more than any stranger's comment. Yes. She studied me. Are you serious about him? Yes. Is he serious about you? Yes. How do you know? Because he looks at me like I'm not fading. Because he doesn't hide me. 'Cause he asks before he touches me. 'Cause he listens. But I didn't say any of that. Instead I said, because I can see it. She rubbed her temples. This is going to be hard for people to understand. I'm not dating people, I replied. She exhaled sharply. I'm not trying to control you. I know. I just don't want you hurt. There it was again. The assumption that I was breakable. I raised you, I said softly. I survived losing your father. I can survive complicated. Her eyes softened slightly. This isn't about survival, she said. It's about longevity. That word lingered. Longevity. She wasn't questioning the present. She was questioning the future. I don't know what this becomes, I admitted. Then why risk it? Because I'm tired of shrinking. Because I don't want to disappear quietly. 'Cause it feels real. Because I want to, I said simply. The honesty seemed to disarm her. We sat in silence for a long moment. Does he know how serious this is? She asked finally. Yes. And he's still here. She searched my face carefully. You look different, she said again. I am. That wasn't defensive. It was factual. After a long pause, she nodded slowly. I don't understand it, she admitted. You don't have to. But if he hurts you, I'll handle it. He stood. I'm not promising I'll be comfortable with this. I'm not asking you to be. She hesitated at the door. Just don't let him shrink your world, she said quietly. The irony almost made me laugh. He was the reason it had expanded. That night Luke noticed immediately. You're quiet, he said as we sat on my porch swing. Megan knows. He nodded slowly. Okay. She's not thrilled. I didn't expect her to be. I studied him carefully. You don't seem surprised. I wouldn't be thrilled either if my mom brought home someone my age. That honesty steadied me. She thinks you're taking advantage of me. His jaw tightened slightly. Do you? No. He held my gaze. Good. Silence settled between us. Does it bother you? Yes. That she thinks I'm using you? Yes. Yeah, he admitted. But I get it. You do. She doesn't know me. She knows me. And she's protecting you. That calm response made something in my chest loosen. You're not angry. Pressed. I don't need her approval, he said evenly. I need yours. That landed deeper than he probably realized. You have it, I said quietly. He reached for my hand. Not to claim. Just to connect. I'm not here for novelty, he said. And I'm not here to fix you. I'm not broken. I know. The way he said it wasn't reassuring. It was certain. I don't want you choosing me because I make you feel young, he added. I frowned slightly. You don't make me feel young. He waited. You make me feel present, I corrected. that seemed to matter. 2 days later the crack widened, but this time from his side. He came over tense, early, shoulders tighter, movements less fluid. What happened? I asked. He exhaled slowly. I told my friend Marcus about us. And he laughed. I felt a flicker of anger. What did he say? That it's a phase. That I'm rebelling. That I'll snap out of it. The dismissal in those words irritated me more than I expected. And what did you say? I asked. That he doesn't know you. His jaw flexed slightly. He thinks I'm chasing something complicated because I'm bored. Are you? I asked quietly. His eyes snapped to mine. No. Silence hung between us. Are you? He asked back. The question wasn't defensive. It was honest. No, I replied. He studied me carefully. This isn't about proving anything, he said slowly. Not for me. Or for me, I replied. Another quiet settled. Thicker this time. Layered. This is the part where people start trying to define it for us, I said. Yeah. And we have to decide if we let them. He stepped closer. I'm not stepping back because someone else is uncomfortable. Neither am I. There it was. A line drawn. Not dramatic, but firm. He cupped my face gently. Still okay? He asked softly. Yes. But now that word carried weight. Because this wasn't just spark and chemistry anymore. This was resistance, pressure, opinion. And we were still standing. For the first time since this began, I understood something clearly. This relationship wasn't fragile. It was being tested. And neither of us had walked away. That night, alone in my bedroom, I stood before the mirrored wardrobe again. I'd started doing that unconsciously. Checking, measuring, looking for cracks. I didn't see desperation. I didn't see denial. I saw a woman choosing. Not blindly. Not foolishly. But deliberately. The world would question it. Family would struggle. Friends would judge. But none of that erased one simple truth. I had not felt this awake in years. And I wasn't ready to go back to sleep. The shift started subtly. It always does. Not with shouting. Not with dramatic ultimatums. Just a question asked in the wrong tone. Megan showed up unannounced on a Wednesday afternoon. I was in the kitchen slicing lemons when the doorbell rang. When I opened it, she was standing there alone. No kids, no casserole dish, no noise buffer. That's new, I said lightly. You without backup. She didn't smile. Can I come in? My stomach tightened slightly. Of course. She walked inside slowly, glancing around like she was taking inventory of something invisible. You busy? She asked. No. That was mostly true. Luke had left an hour earlier. His coffee mug was already in the dishwasher. I had learned to move carefully without meaning to. We sat at the kitchen table. Silence stretched. She folded her hands together. I saw you, she said. My heartbeat didn't spike, it dropped. Where? Asked evenly. At the Saturday market. With him. There it was. No confusion. No pretending. Just truth. And? Asked. And I didn't say anything then because I wanted to make sure I wasn't overreacting. Waited. He looks younger than Kyle. He is, I replied calmly. She inhaled slowly. How old? 32. The number landed between us like a dropped plate. She leaned back in her chair. Mom. Not angry. Not yet. Just stunned. I'm aware of the math, I said. That's not what I'm worried about. Then what are you worried about? That he's taking advantage of you. The words came fast. Protective. I'm not fragile, I replied immediately. I know that, she said quickly. But you've been alone a long time. And sometimes attention feels like love. Carol's words echoed. I know the difference, I said quietly. Do you? The doubt in her voice hurt more than any stranger's comment. Yes. She studied me. Are you serious about him? Yes. Is he serious about you? Yes. How do you know? Because he looks at me like I'm not fading. Because he doesn't hide me. 'Cause he asks before he touches me. 'Cause he listens. But I didn't say any of that. Instead I said, because I can see it. She rubbed her temples. This is going to be hard for people to understand. I'm not dating people, I replied. She exhaled sharply. I'm not trying to control you. I know. I just don't want you hurt. There it was again. The assumption that I was breakable. I raised you, I said softly. I survived losing your father. I can survive complicated. Her eyes softened slightly. This isn't about survival, she said. It's about longevity. That word lingered. Longevity. She wasn't questioning the present. She was questioning the future. I don't know what this becomes, I admitted. Then why risk it? Because I'm tired of shrinking. Because I don't want to disappear quietly. 'Cause it feels real. Because I want to, I said simply. The honesty seemed to disarm her. We sat in silence for a long moment. Does he know how serious this is? She asked finally. Yes. And he's still here. She searched my face carefully. You look different, she said again. I am. That wasn't defensive. It was factual. After a long pause, she nodded slowly. I don't understand it, she admitted. You don't have to. But if he hurts you, I'll handle it. He stood. I'm not promising I'll be comfortable with this. I'm not asking you to be. She hesitated at the door. Just don't let him shrink your world, she said quietly. The irony almost made me laugh. He was the reason it had expanded. That night Luke noticed immediately. You're quiet, he said as we sat on my porch swing. Megan knows. He nodded slowly. Okay. She's not thrilled. I didn't expect her to be. I studied him carefully. You don't seem surprised. I wouldn't be thrilled either if my mom brought home someone my age. That honesty steadied me. She thinks you're taking advantage of me. His jaw tightened slightly. Do you? No. He held my gaze. Good. Silence settled between us. Does it bother you? Yes. That she thinks I'm using you? Yes. Yeah, he admitted. But I get it. You do. She doesn't know me. She knows me. And she's protecting you. That calm response made something in my chest loosen. You're not angry. Pressed. I don't need her approval, he said evenly. I need yours. That landed deeper than he probably realized. You have it, I said quietly. He reached for my hand. Not to claim. Just to connect. I'm not here for novelty, he said. And I'm not here to fix you. I'm not broken. I know. The way he said it wasn't reassuring. It was certain. I don't want you choosing me because I make you feel young, he added. I frowned slightly. You don't make me feel young. He waited. You make me feel present, I corrected. That seemed to matter. 2 days later the crack widened, but this time from his side. He came over tense. Early. Shoulders tighter. Movements less fluid. What happened? Asked. He exhaled slowly. I told my friend Marcus about us. And he laughed. I felt a flicker of anger. What did he say? That it's a phase. That I'm rebelling. That I'll snap out of it. The dismissal in those words irritated me more than I expected. And what did you say? Asked. That he doesn't know you. His jaw flexed slightly. He thinks I'm chasing something complicated because I'm bored. Are you? I asked quietly. His eyes snapped to mine. No. Silence hung between us. Are you? He asked back. The question wasn't defensive. It was honest. No, I replied. He studied me carefully. This isn't about proving anything, he said slowly. Not for me. Or for me, I replied. Another quiet settled. Thicker this time. Layered. This is the part where people start trying to define it for us, I said. Yeah. And we have to decide if we let them. He stepped closer. I'm not stepping back because someone else is uncomfortable. Neither am I. There it was. A line drawn. Not dramatic, but firm. He cupped my face gently. Still okay? He asked softly. Yes. But now that word carried weight. Because this wasn't just spark and chemistry anymore. This was resistance, pressure, opinion. And we were still standing. For the first time since this began, I understood something clearly. This relationship wasn't fragile. It was being tested. And neither of us had walked away. That night, alone in my bedroom, I stood before the mirrored wardrobe again. I'd started doing that unconsciously. Checking, measuring, looking for cracks. I didn't see desperation. I didn't see denial. I saw a woman choosing. Not blindly, not foolishly, but deliberately. The world would question it. Family would struggle. Friends would judge. But none of that erased one simple truth. I had not felt this awake in years. And I wasn't ready to go back to sleep. The meeting was inevitable. I knew it the moment Megan said, "I want to meet him." Not someday. Not eventually. You don't trust my judgment, I said carefully. She didn't deny it. I trust you, she replied. I don't know him. Fair. Uncomfortable. Fair. Luke didn't hesitate when I told him. Okay, he said. That's it. That's it. You're not nervous. He smiled faintly. Of course I'm nervous. I'm meeting the woman who thinks I'm exploiting her mother. That's not exactly how she phrased it. But it's the undertone. I couldn't argue with that. We agreed on Sunday dinner. Neutral ground. My house. Controlled environment. All week I felt like I was preparing for inspection. Not cleaning. Emotionally. Luke arrived 10 minutes early. He wore a navy button-down instead of his usual casual tees. Subtle. Intentional. You look nervous, I said. I am. That honesty steadied me. You don't have to impress her, I reminded him. I'm not trying to impress her, he said quietly. I'm trying to respect her. That mattered more than charm ever could. When Megan walked in, her expression was polite, measured, protective. Luke, she said, offering her hand. Megan, he replied calmly. No overconfidence. No awkward joking. Just steady. Dinner started cautiously. Small talk. Work. Weather. The kids. Then Megan leaned back slightly. So, she said. How serious is this? There it was. No detours. Luke didn't look at me for help. I care about your mom, he said evenly. That wasn't my question. He held her gaze. I'm not here casually. She studied him carefully. You understand the long-term reality of this? Yes. And what does that look like to you? He didn't rush his answer. It looks like not underestimating her. The answer surprised her. And you, she pressed. What about me? What do you get out of this? The bluntness might have rattled someone less steady. Luke didn't flinch. I get someone who sees me clearly, he said. And women your age don't. He paused. Some do. But not in the way your mom does. The room went still. I wasn't used to being spoken about like that. With respect, he added. Megan's eyes flicked toward me briefly. You're aware she's built a life already, Megan said carefully. Family. Stability. I'm not trying to replace that. Then where do you fit? In the present. The simplicity of that answer landed quietly. Dinner ended without fireworks. No approval. But no hostility. When Megan left, she hugged me. It wasn't stiff. But it wasn't fully relaxed either. I'm still watching, she whispered. I know, I replied. After she drove away, Luke exhaled slowly. That was intense. She didn't bite. She didn't smile much either. I stepped closer to him. You did well. I wasn't performing. I know. He studied my face. Did I say anything wrong? No. Anything weak? No. He nodded slowly. I don't need her to like me, he said. But I want her to know I'm not careless. She knows. Does she? Yes. But even as I said it, I knew this wasn't finished. This was evaluation phase. And evaluations don't end after one meeting. 2 days later, Luke confronted his past directly. His ex, Claire, had texted again. Not angry this time. Curious. He showed me the message. Can we talk in person? I owe you an apology. I stared at it. You don't have to go, I said carefully. I know. Do you want to? Yes. The honesty stung slightly. Why? Because unfinished conversations have a way of lingering. I understood that. Oh well. Are you afraid? He asked gently. No. That wasn't entirely true. But I wasn't afraid of losing him. I was afraid of history. History has gravity. They met at a cafe. He told me afterward. She apologized, he said. For what? For assuming this was some psychological detour. And she asked if I was happy. My chest tightened slightly. What did you say? I said yes. He held my gaze when he said it. And how did she react? She believed me. Silence settled. She said she could see it in my face. Something about that reassured me more than it should have. And how did you feel? Yes. Relieved. Not tempted. No. Not defensive. Not rushed. Just certain. You're quiet, he observed. I'm thinking. About how brave this is. He frowned slightly. What is? Choosing something that doesn't fit a mold. He stepped closer. I'm not choosing rebellion, he said softly. I'm choosing you. The steadiness in his voice grounded me again. But later that night, alone in my room, doubt crept in. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just a whisper. What if this burns bright and ends fast? What if longevity really is the problem? What if Megan is right? What if I'm right now, but wrong later? I stood in front of the mirrored wardrobe again. That had become my ritual. Self-audit. I didn't look foolish. I didn't look delusional. But I did look vulnerable. And vulnerability doesn't come with guarantees. My phone buzzed. Still thinking. Luke. He knew me too well. You don't have to carry this alone. That simple sentence dissolved more doubt than any argument could. I wasn't alone in this risk. We both were. And risk shared is lighter than risk carried alone. The next weekend something shifted again. Early. Luke invited me to a gathering with his friends. Not a public market. Not neutral territory. His world. You don't have to, he said when he asked. I want to, I replied. But I knew what it meant. Exposure. Valuation. Whispers. And this time I'd be the one under the microscope. For the first time since this began, I felt truly unsure. Not about him. About me. Could I walk into a room full of 30-somethings and not feel like an outsider? Could I handle the curiosity? The quiet judgment? The comparisons? He noticed the hesitation. You don't owe anyone comfort, he said softly. I know. But I want to stand next to you without you shrinking. The word hit. Shrinking. That was the fear. Not embarrassment. Reduction. I won't shrink, I said quietly. But I didn't fully believe it yet. That night, lying in bed, I realized something important. Love, or whatever this was becoming, isn't tested by passion. It's tested by pressure. Family. Friends. Past relationships. Self-doubt. And we were in the middle of all of it. Still standing. Still choosing. Still steady. But the next step. That would determine everything. I almost changed my mind twice before we even got there. Luke's friend Marcus was hosting the gathering. Small birthday thing, nothing wild. Just a group of his friends at a townhouse downtown. Usual. Familiar territory for them. Unfamiliar territory for me. As we pulled up outside, I looked at my reflection in the passenger window. Not overdressed. Not trying too hard. But aware. You don't have to prove anything, Luke said quietly, cutting the engine. I'm not trying to. He turned slightly toward me. You're thinking. Yes. About shrinking. The fact that he named it so easily unsettled me. Yes, I admitted. He reached for my hand. You don't disappear in rooms, he said. You never have. That wasn't flattery. It was observation. We walked in together. The room quieted. Not dramatically, not rudely, but noticeably. Subtle pauses, quick glances, mental calculations. This is her. The woman. Marcus approached first. Confident. Slight smirk that softened when he looked at me directly. You must be Diane, he said, offering his hand. I must be under review, I replied calmly. A flicker of surprise crossed his face. Then he smiled. Fair enough. Introductions followed. Names I immediately forgot. Polite smiles. Curiosity masked as friendliness. A woman with sleek dark hair, Jenna, tilted her head slightly. I didn't expect you to be so calm, she said. I met her gaze evenly. What were you expecting? She hesitated. I don't know. Drama. I retired from drama years ago, I said lightly. A few laughs broke the tension. Not mocking. Relieved. Conversation resumed. Luke stayed close but not possessive. Not hovering. Just present. And slowly, carefully, I realized something important. They weren't hostile. They were adjusting. One of the guys asked me about my career. Another asked about travel. The conversation shifted away from age and into experience. And I saw it happen, the recalibration. Not Luke's older girlfriend. Midway through the night, Marcus cornered Luke near the kitchen. I didn't need to hear the words to know what was happening. Valuation. Again. Later Luke told me what was said. He asked if I was serious, Luke admitted. And I said yes. What did he say? He said if I hurt you, he'd kill me. That surprised a laugh out of me. Protective. Very. I felt something settle inside me. Not fully relaxed, but steadier. Then came the moment I didn't anticipate. Jenna, wine glass in hand, leaned toward me. Can I ask you something without you getting offended? That depends, I replied calmly. She smiled slightly. Does it ever make you feel insecure? Being the older one. The bluntness was surgical. For a second the room noise faded. Insecure. I considered lying. It would have been easy. Instead I said, sometimes. Her eyebrows lifted slightly. Really? Yes. Why? Because the world reminds me I'm supposed to. Silence flickered between us. But when I'm with him, I continued, I don't feel older. I feel equal. That wasn't rehearsed. It was true. Jenna studied me carefully. I respect that, she said quietly. The conversation shifted after that. Not because of awkwardness. Because something had settled. The curiosity had peaked. And it hadn't exploded. When we left, Luke glanced at me carefully. You okay? Yes. Really? Yes. I wasn't pretending. I didn't shrink, I added. No, he said softly. You didn't. The real turning point came later that night. Not at the party. Home. We stood in my living room, quiet wrapping around us. That wasn't easy for you, he said. No. But you did it anyway. So did you. He studied me. You don't have to enter every room I enter. I know. I don't want you performing strength for me. I'm not. Silence stretched. Then he said something that shifted everything. I don't want you feeling like you have to fight for space in my life. The simplicity of that statement cracked something open. Do I? Asked softly. Sometimes. That stung. Explain. You brace before we walk into places. Like you're preparing for impact. I absorbed that. He wasn't wrong. I'm used to being the stable one, I said quietly. Not the unexpected one. You're not unexpected to me. The steadiness in his voice grounded me again. Then what am I? Asked. He stepped closer. Chosen. The word landed deeper than I expected. Not novelty, he continued. Not rebellion. Not curiosity. Chosen. My throat tightened slightly. You're not trying to prove something with me. Yes. No. You're not trying to feel young. I already feel young, he said with a faint smile. That's not your job. I laughed softly. Then why me? Pressed. He didn't hesitate. Because you challenge me without belittling me. Because you listen without trying to fix me. Because when you walk into a room, you don't need attention. You carry presence. The words settled heavy and warm at the same time. And you? He asked quietly. Why me? I looked at him carefully. Because you don't treat me like a relic. He winced slightly. You think I would? No. That's the point. I stepped closer. You don't make me feel like I'm reliving youth, I continued. You make me feel like I still have future. The air shifted. Deeper. Quieter. More grounded. He rested his forehead gently against mine. This isn't a phase, he said softly. I know. But for the first time since this began, I didn't just hope it wasn't. I believed it wasn't. Later that night after he left, I stood in front of the mirrored wardrobe again. The ritual. The audit. But this time I didn't search for doubt. I searched for fear. And I couldn't find the sharp edges anymore. The world had tested us. Friends, family, exes, public spaces, private insecurities. And we hadn't fractured. We'd adjusted, adapted, strengthened. For the first time I allowed myself to think something bigger. Not just about love. About permanence. And that thought didn't terrify me. Steadied me. The next morning Megan called. How did it go? She asked. Better than expected. She was quiet for a moment. He looks at you differently, she admitted. I smiled faintly. Yes. I'm still cautious, she said. That's your job. But I don't see manipulation. Relief moved through me slowly. Thank you, I said softly. I just need you to promise something. What? If this ever stops feeling equal, you walk away. I will. And I meant it. Because this wasn't about defiance anymore. It was about balance. And balance was something I had learned to protect fiercely. As I hung up, I realized something important. This relationship had moved beyond defense. Beyond justification. Beyond spark. It had entered something quieter. Stronger. Not dramatic. Not reckless. But intentional. And intention is what sustains what passion starts. It wasn't fireworks that shifted things. It was paperwork. Luke brought it up on a quiet Tuesday night while we were sitting at my kitchen table. Half-empty wine glasses between us. I got offered a promotion, he said. The way he said it told me it wasn't casual. That's good, I replied carefully. It's in Chicago. The word settled heavy in the air. Chicago. 2 states away. Not across town. Not a longer commute. A different life. How long have you known? Asked. A week. A week. And you're just telling me now? I needed to think. About what? About us. There it was. Clear. Unavoidable. I leaned back slightly. Is it a good offer? Yes. More money. Yes. More responsibility. Yes. And you want it. Silence. That's not simple. Why not? Because taking it means deciding what this is. My heartbeat slowed instead of sped up. Decision point. I don't want you resenting me later, he continued. If you stay here because of me. I didn't ask you to stay. I know. But that's the weight. I studied him carefully. You think I'd let you sacrifice something you want? I think you might. That stung slightly. You think I'd hold you back? No, he said quickly. Not intentionally. But I don't want to choose career over you. And I don't want to choose you over growth. The honesty was sharp, clean, adult. For the first time, this wasn't about age gaps or social pressure. It was about trajectory. I won't follow you to Chicago, I said calmly. He blinked. I didn't ask you to. I know. But let's remove that fantasy. He nodded slowly. My life is here, I continued. My family. My home. My roots. I know. And your life is still expanding. Silence stretched. You're assuming I'll take it, he said quietly. I'm assuming you're considering it. He didn't deny it. And you're not angry, he asked. No. Hurt. Maybe. He exhaled slowly. I don't want this to end because geography gets complicated. Then don't let it. You'd do long distance. The question wasn't casual. It was vulnerable. Would you? Ask back. He held my gaze. Yes. Not hesitation. Not politeness. I felt something shift inside me. You understand what that means? Ask softly. Distance magnifies cracks. Then we don't let cracks form. That's naive. No, he said evenly. That's intentional. I studied him carefully. He wasn't chasing novelty. He wasn't panicking. He was evaluating. Just like me. I don't want you shrinking your ambition to make this easier, I said. And I don't want you pretending distance doesn't scare you. It does, I admitted. He reached across the table, taking my hand. This isn't where I thought my life would be, he said quietly. With me. With someone who makes decisions heavier. The phrasing wasn't insulting. It was honest. You make mine heavier too, I replied. Good heavier. Yes. He squeezed my hand slightly. I don't want this to be a beautiful chapter, he said softly. I want it to be a story. The words lingered. Beautiful chapter. Temporary. Seasonal. I had been bracing for that possibility from the beginning. You're asking me to trust longevity, I said quietly. Yes. And you're asking yourself the same thing. Yes. Silence settled between us. Not tense. Reflective. Take the promotion, I said finally. His eyes searched mine. You're sure? Yes. And us. We'll figure it out. That's not very precise. No, I agreed. It's brave. He studied me carefully. You're not pushing me away. I'm refusing to cage you. The air shifted. Deeper. More serious. He stood slowly, stepping closer. I don't want a future that doesn't include you, he said quietly. Then build one that does. And if that means Chicago, then we learn how to cross state lines. The faintest smile touched his mouth. You're stronger than people think. I've had practice. He brushed his thumb lightly along my jaw. I don't want to lose momentum, he said softly. You won't. You're not afraid I'll meet someone younger there? The bluntness made me inhale sharply. I'm human, I said. But if that's what breaks us, then we weren't built strong enough. He held my gaze for a long time. I don't want younger, he said quietly. I want depth. The words settled heavy and warm. Depth isn't convenient, I replied. I know. It's not easy. I know. It requires intention. I know. His certainty wasn't performative. It was steady. He rested his forehead against mine again, something he'd started doing lately when conversations turned serious. I'm choosing this, he said softly. Even if it's harder. Especially if it's harder. Something inside me relaxed. Not because the future was guaranteed, but because the present was deliberate. After he left, I stood in front of the mirrored wardrobe again. Habit. Ritual. Audit. I searched my reflection for panic. For regret. For signs that I was being reckless. I didn't find them. Found something else. Resolve. 8 years ago, I had lost a husband. Lost certainty. Lost the version of my life I thought was permanent. Since then, I had lived safely. Carefully. Contained. Luke hadn't replaced that life. He'd expanded it. And expansion always feels unstable at first. My phone buzzed. I'm taking the promotion, he texted. I stared at the message. Slow inhale. A moment later. Still choosing you. The words steadied me more than I expected. Still choosing you too, I replied. Not dramatic. Not desperate. Just true. 2 days later, he officially accepted. Ago. 6 weeks. That was the timeline. 6 weeks to adjust. 6 weeks to prepare. 6 weeks to test whether this was spark or substance. Megan called again that night. "Is this where it falls apart?" she asked carefully. "No," I replied. "You're calm." "I am." "Why?" "Because if it survives distance, it's real. And if it doesn't, then it was honest while it lasted." She was quiet for a moment. "You've changed," she said softly. "Yes. For the better." "Yes." I didn't hesitate, because that was the clearest part of all this. No matter what happened next, I wasn't the same woman who stood alone in that bedroom months ago, staring at a life that felt finished. I had risked something, opened something, chosen something, and that choice alone had altered me. That night Luke came over. No drama, no grand gestures, just quiet closeness. We lay together in the dark, aware of the ticking clock 6 weeks away. "Are you scared?" he asked softly. "Yes." "Good." I frowned slightly. "Good. It means it matters." Silence settled. "You ever think we're crazy?" "Yes." "Constantly." I laughed softly. "But not wrong," he added. "No," I agreed. "Not wrong." His hand tightened slightly around mine. "Whatever happens," he said quietly, "don't regret this." "I won't." And I meant it. Because even if distance tested us, even if reality shifted, even if the future refused to look like the present, this had been real. And real things change you. The last week before Chicago didn't feel dramatic. Felt quiet. Heavy in small ways. Luke packed slowly. Not urgently. Not like he was escaping. Just methodical. Organized. Intentional. Boxes stacked in his apartment. Books sorted. Clothes folded. I helped one afternoon, wrapping dishes in newspaper while he dismantled a shelf. "Feels strange," he said. "Yes. Like I'm standing in the middle of something instead of the end of it." "That's because you are." He looked at me. "You don't talk like someone preparing for goodbye." "Because I'm not." He paused, screwdriver in hand. "You really believe that?" "Yes." It wasn't denial. It was clarity. We weren't breaking up. We were stretching. And stretching hurts differently than ending. The night before he left, we didn't go out. No farewell dinner. No sentimental landmarks. We stayed home. My house. My kitchen. The same place this began. We cooked together quietly. Moved around each other without thinking. Familiar now. Comfortable. After dinner we sat on the porch. Late summer air. Warm. "Will. I don't want this to turn into countdown calls and insecurity," he said softly. "It won't. Distance makes people weird. So does fear." He studied me carefully. "You're steady." I decided to be. "That's not how emotions work." "No," I agreed. "But perspective does." He leaned back, watching the sky. "I've dated women who demanded certainty," he said. "And I never wanted to give it. And now I want to build it." The words settled deep. "You don't owe me permanence," I said quietly. "I'm not giving you obligation." "Then what are you giving me?" He looked at me fully. "Intention." That word again. It had become our anchor. Not passion. Not novelty. Intention. "I don't need daily reassurance," I added. "I'll still give it. I don't want guilt. You won't get it. I don't want you pausing your growth. I'm not." Silence. Grounded. "You know what changed everything?" he asked. "What?" "The day that man called us disgusting." I blinked. "Why?" "Because you didn't let go of my hand." I hadn't thought about that in weeks. "I wasn't embarrassed," I said. "I know." He leaned closer. "That's when I realized you weren't treating me like a secret." The truth of that sat quietly between us. "I don't hide things that matter," I replied. Later that night in my bedroom, the mirrored wardrobe reflected 2 figures instead of one. That image stayed with me. Not because it was romantic. Because it was balanced. For months, I had stood in front of that mirror alone, auditing myself. Now there were two reflections. Not overlapping. Not one overshadowing the other. Side by side. You still checking for cracks? He asked softly from behind me. Habit. Find any. I studied our reflection. No. He wrapped his arms around me, resting his chin lightly on my shoulder. You know this won't be easy, he said quietly. I know. There will be nights you question it. Yes. There will be moments I'm exhausted and distant. I expect that. And there will be people waiting for it to fail. I met his eyes in the mirror. They don't get to decide that. His gaze held mine. You don't look afraid, he said. I'm not. That surprised me. But it was true. I wasn't afraid of losing him. I was afraid of not trying. And that fear no longer controlled me. Morning came faster than I wanted. Suitcase by the door. Car loaded. The air felt different. Not tragic. Just transitional. He stood in my doorway for a long moment. 6 months ago he stood here as a delivery man. Now he stood here as someone woven into my life. I'll call when I get there, he said. I know. He stepped closer. Still choosing me? He asked softly. Yes. No hesitation. No. He studied my face like he was memorizing it. I don't want to become a memory, he said quietly. Then don't. That faint smile again. He kissed me, not desperate, not dramatic. Steady. Present. Intentional. When he pulled away, he rested his forehead against mine one last time. This isn't goodbye, he said. No, I agreed. It's expansion. He laughed softly. You and that word. Get used to it. He walked to his car. I didn't wave frantically. I didn't cry. I stood there, grounded, watching him drive away. Not shrinking. Not collapsing. Just aware that something meaningful was in motion. The first week was adjustment. Calls at night. Texts during the day. Pictures of his new apartment. Stories about the office. Stories about my garden. Felt normal. Different. But not broken. On Thursday night he called later than usual. Tough day. Yes. Yeah. You okay? Yes. Silence. You sound unsure. I just miss you. The honesty softened everything. I miss you too, I replied. Not dramatic. Just true. You still feel steady, he asked. Yes. You don't feel left. No. Why? Because you didn't leave me, I said. You moved. He was quiet for a second. That matters. It does. 3 weeks in, he flew back for the weekend. Not announced dramatically. Just booked the ticket. When he stood at my door again, something clicked. The space between visits hadn't created distance. It had clarified importance. You didn't fade, he said quietly when he stepped inside. Neither did you. We didn't rush. Didn't cling. We just existed in the same room again. Balanced. Grounded. Later that night, lying beside him, I realized something powerful. This wasn't about proximity anymore. It was about commitment. And commitment isn't loud. It's consistent. You ever think about the future? He asked softly. Yes. And I see you in it. He exhaled slowly. Me too. Not as a phase, I added. Not as a chapter. As what? As a choice I keep making. Silence settled. Secure. I don't know where this ends, he said quietly. Neither do I. But I know I don't want it to end because it's inconvenient. It won't, I replied. Because inconvenience doesn't undo intention. Months later, standing once again in front of the mirrored wardrobe, I saw something different. Not youth regained. Not rebellion. Not novelty. Strength. Growth. Expansion. I wasn't the woman who waited quietly for life to pass. I wasn't hiding behind safety. I had risked love again. Not recklessly. Not blindly. Deliberately. And whether Luke and I grew old in the same city or across state lines, one truth remained. I had chosen to live forward. The age gap hadn't defined us. The judgment hadn't broken us. The distance hadn't erased us. We weren't a scandal. We weren't a rebellion. We were two adults choosing each other again and again without shrinking. And that, more than anything, felt permanent.